an organization, a university can really take on board what we've spent the last 30 years learning. You know, learn how to adapt as an organization, how to bring in not only the modern ways of working, but the ways of thinking, the way that if you look at the top of the stock exchange, you're going to see companies that are constantly reinventing themselves. They are born to this. Many universities are. They were created decades, if not centuries ago, and they've been incredibly successful. They have done phenomenal work. You know, they've helped shape the world that we know today. Um, but we're seeing a shift. We're seeing a change in the landscape that means these organisations can't rest on their laurels. And I don't think many of them have been doing that. But they're entering a much harsher world where money is tighter, where every penny is starting to count. And they have smart people. They have really amazingly capable people. It becomes a question of how do we use these people to best effect? How do we deliver the services that the students, that the staff deserve? And following the old patterns is going to do an okay job. And by okay, I mean it's going to do what we did before. But people's appetite for what we got before is changing. They want more, they want better, they know what is possible. Because of people like Apple, right, the average student who walks through a university's doors, their expectation of technology, of digital services is all the way up here. And many organizations, it's down here, not just universities, many organizations. But for an 18-year-old coming out of school, you know, apart from the stuff they use at school, which if it's anything like when I left school, you kind of write that off as that's just school. You're walking into a university, this is the first place where you're seeing it and you're going, oh, this isn't joined up, this isn't linked together, this isn't what I would expect. We need to change that. We need them to walk in and go, wow, okay, I can do this, I can do that. I've got an app that isn't bloated, that only talks to me about the things that I want. These people get me. They understand me. They know how to support me. Not generic student number five, but actually me. You know, it's the services I need. I've had amazing conversations with people in the education sector, and you hear some of the numbers. It's the number of emails they send people, the number of services available. It's phenomenal. I don't know if I had this stuff available as a student because we didn't have the technology to communicate in this way. And I probably didn't read enough of what was communicated. But these people coming in do read it, they do know it. If we can get this right, it becomes revolutionary. It becomes something that you can support an individual in the way that they need supported, which is different to others. So people are staying in the system, they're engaged, they've got what they need to be there. How many students leave university without a degree because they've struggled to ask for help? They've not had the support they have. They didn't know where to get it. In today's world, that is something we can change. I was that student 30 years ago. I was the person who was in over my head, but didn't know how to ask for help, didn't know where to turn. And I'm sure if one of my professors sees this, they'll probably tut and say, yeah, they were there. And they were. And 30 years later, hindsight's wonderful. And I know that. But the 18, 19-year-old me didn't. How do we make sure that that person today does? That's what getting this right is about. How do we keep people in? How do we bring them in, invite them in so they have the best chance, the best potential? Right? How do they get the learning they need, develop the thinking that it takes to work in today's world, to join society as a highly skilled member of the workforce, as somebody who's going to take us forwards, who's going to see new things? It's not going to be about money. I think that is one of the big changes I have to make. I'm so used to working in industry where you're looking at return on investment and things. But I think that some of that thinking coming in, some of the discipline of industry is going to be invaluable because it's going to help shape the way universities think about themselves. Do they run services because they've always run services? Or do they run services because they can do it incredibly well and it serves the people that they're there to serve as best they can? That's a hard one to swallow. If you're a legacy organization, often running legacy systems, you might have had some of these things for a decade or more. They're part of the furniture. I've had this argument in industry with companies, and they're like, "Oh, well, we have to do this," and why? We want to bring that empirical nature, evidence-led thinking. Why is that service there? How much is it costing the university for that to be delivered? How much value is it getting back? All right. And that's not only going to be in pounds and pence. There's an awful lot more of value in the education sector, an awful lot more important things than just money. How do we make sure that we set up the universities, the education sector at large, to be more like the organizations at the top of the stock market, those who are flexible, who have a fluid way of working? They're always gauging things against today, not yesterday.